On the 11th of February, Wildlight Studios, who made the Highguard game, sacked the vast majority of their staff. The game itself had lost 97% of its player base over the course of 2 weeks, and one of their employees, a chap called Josh Sobel, has taken to social media today to express his thoughts and opinions on the matter. Now, as somebody who's made just one video to date on Highguard, which I called The Sad Story So Far, I tried to be as objective as possible in that video with all the information that surrounded the release of the trailer and the actual release of the game itself. So I thought I would do that with Josh, and I'll go through his post as objectively as I possibly can. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. Yes, a week or so ago, I did a video about Highguard. I called it the story so far, the sad story so far, as it really didn't have a great launch at all. It had a lot of issues, and there was a lot of surrounding elements which didn't adhere itself to gamers. As a consequence of that, 97% of their audience vanished. The game now has less than 2,000 people playing it. At peak, it was 97,000 on launch. There's been a lot of criticism leveled at it from all angles, from technical problems to, let's just say, ideological problems. And one of their staff members has wanted to take to social media to really break down what he thought of this whole process. So I'm going to go through that. And as I did with my Highguard, the sad story so far, I'm going to be as objective but honest as possible as regards to this, because I don't have any dog in this fight. I expressed in that Highguard video that looking at the game wasn't remotely appealing to me. I didn't like the aesthetic of it. I didn't like the gameplay loop from the looks of it. And I defended it because I didn't think it was woke at all. I just thought that it was bland and, non-appealing. So let's crack into this post. This might be a long video. Now, I would like to say straight from the get-go, do not in any way, shape, or form attack Josh because he wants to put his opinion out there. Will I critique his opinion? 100%. But I disavow anybody that does that. He has the right to speak, whether or not we disagree or agree. But I'll go through it, like I said, as fairly as I possibly can. And he says, reflecting on shipping my first game, Highguard. Apologies for the length. Been wanting to say a lot of this for a while. The day leading to the Game Awards in 2025 was amongst the most exciting of my life. After 2.5 years of passionately working on Highguard, we were ready to reveal it to the world. The future seemed bright. Everyone I knew who had any connection to the team or project had the same sentiments. This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there was one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this all day. Now, the term toxic negativity gets bounded around a lot when it comes to criticism in an effort to dismiss that criticism. This here is what we call toxic positivity. You yourself have just stated anyone I knew who had any connection to the team or project had the same sentiments. So because they do have the connection, they are likely to be very biased towards what they saw. And with all due respect, terms like, if there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. Well, that's coming from an individual that's trying to speak for the industry. So you have to have a massive level of naivety to think that that is representative of the whole industry. There's nothing wrong with being excited for your project to release. There's nothing wrong with being proud of what you've made. But there's also got to be realism attached to that as well. The internal pre-reveal feedback, even from unbiased sources, was quite positive, and where it was negative, it was constructive and often actionable. Well, I don't really think you're going to get an unbiased source internally, but okay. People who played the game, including us, had a blast. Okay. And since we were an independent self-published studio built with royalties in mind, many of us were hoping this could finally be the thing that broke the millennial financial curse. Well, that's just by the by. You're making the game that you want to make, so of course you're going to be more inclined to like it because you're tailoring to your own tastes. But nobody owes you their money. That has to be earned. But then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out the bias in folks who give positive reviews after being flown out for an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lean into a disingenuous direction, whether consciously or not. Okay, let's address the first bit. Of course, if you are flying somebody out to wine, dine, 69 them about your video game, you are creating a relationship with that content creator that is essentially built on disingenuous behavior from the start. Because you know that if that content creator goes back home and says, I went to the event and I found that the video game was not very good at all, he ain't coming back or she ain't coming back. So you start to create a toxic environment with content creators that are willing to sell their soul for some flights, some toys and trinkets, or to be put down in front of the devs or the game for advanced early play. And you know that. So there's no reason for any of us to play around when it comes to that. You know exactly what you're doing. You pull them into the industry bubble and you make them become just positive mouthpieces, whether they like the game or not. Now, if a game gets 10 times more engagement for the negative aspects of it, to me, that likely says that the information that came from the bought and paid for shills was wrong. So they've come out going, great, wonderful, wonderful, great. And then when people have actually got their hands on the game, it's nothing of the sort. So that's why the negative aspect gets much more eyes on it. Because with a video game, unlike a TV show or a film, I purposely pick shows which are, I think, objectively shit. Because we're taking what negative the industry's done to our beloved franchises, Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek. We're taking that god-awful content that they've created, that we've loved for decades, supported for decades, said wonderful things about for decades, and then turning that crap, ripping it apart to give entertainment, something actually enjoyable for the audience to like. I don't think you can do that with a video game, because with a video game, gameplay is always going to come through. Always going to come through. If you've got a really good gameplay loop with a cool idea, people are going to gravitate towards it. You can't create a false narrative around that going, it's terrible, it's terrible. No, because people will play it and they'll go, no, it's not. It's actually really good. And that word of mouth spreads. And when word of mouth spreads, wildfire starts, like with Arc Raiders. Extraction shooter, very niche genre. But suddenly, Arc Raiders, it's just got all those right things that the normie can now get involved with an extraction shooter and have fun. And it exploded. Absolutely exploded. So I think there's a small element of truth in that. But ultimately, when it comes to a video game, the gameplay loop will always win out. Whereas shill media will always be exposed. And if they're exposed as shilling, then your company, and more importantly, which never gets really said, you are doing damage to your industry as a whole, because it's saying your industry is made up of disingenuous liars. So I'll take that from that, if you don't mind. The hate started immediately, in addition to dogpiling on the trailer. I personally came under fire due to my naivety on Twitter, which almost all of my now former co-workers have learned to avoid during their previous game launches. After setting my Twitter account to private to protect my sanity, many content creators made videos and posts about me and my cowardice, amassing millions of views and inadvertently sending hundreds of angry gamers into my replies. Well, if your account is privated, they can't go into your replies because they cannot get to your posts. So that's actually incorrect information there. Now, you can just avoid Twitter. You don't have to go on to Twitter. If you want to communicate with somebody, just go into the chat function and reply through the chat function. That's all you need to do. Just click on there, in you go. You don't have to go through any of the notices or anything like that whatsoever. But nobody can go to your replies if you've privated your account. They laughed at me for being proud of the game. They told me to get out the McDonald's applications. Dude, that's the internet being the internet. You've got to get a little bit more of a backbone. That's tepid shit. Believe you me, as somebody that's had the ire of the internet more than once, that's real tepid shit. And mocked me for listing having autism in my bio, which they seemed to think was evidence the game would be, quote, woke trash. All of this was very emotionally taxing. Well, Josh, with all due respect, I don't give two shits about your medical diagnoses, okay? I am actually one of the people who get very confused why people seem to want to put in their profiles all of their mental illnesses or problems or autisms or whatever. It's literally showing people how to attack you, okay? So if you don't want people to attack you, the best thing is to either don't give them fuel, because nobody needs to know you're autistic. Is there any reason why you need to share that to the world? There's oversharing, Josh. And number two, just ignore it. Ignore it. As a content creator, I get all kinds, all day. There's wonderful comments and there's negative comments. When I say negative comments, you know what I mean. On social media, the same. It's just a part and parcel of being on the internet. So with something like that, you've got to kind of just, man up a little bit. There is much constructive criticism that can be and has been said about Highguard's trailer, marketing, and launch, but I don't think it's my place to commentate on that. I also don't think there's any way to know whether the launch would have fared better or worse without the massive spotlight that was thrown onto us in response to the Game Awards trailer placement, but we never got that chance. Well, first of all, you did get that chance. You got that chance because that is where you were given. You were given the ultimate spot, the big reveal at the end of the Game Awards. Now, would we have known if you didn't have that, if it would have affected you differently? I can say pretty much with all my heart, yes. It would have been a big difference because you were afforded the big trailer reveal at the end of the Game Awards where millions of gamers were looking to see the next great, absolutely mind-blowing video game that was going to take us into the next generation revealed. And they didn't. They got a very average, bland, looking hero shooter, which didn't meet any of their expectations. On top of that, it came out that you got that spot for free as well. So it looked like, certainly from an optics perspective, that you were getting some great favors from Jeff Keighley. Now, what the relationship was that allowed that to happen, don't know. But it didn't endear your game and your company at all, because a lot of gamers out there felt they got cheated. They got cheated out of something which they thought was going to be, you know, GTA 6 equivalent, maybe. And your game could never, ever live up to that expectation based on what we saw, trailer-wise and when it launched. And you had to realize that. You really, truly did. And if you didn't, again, I'm going to have to call, there's some very naive people at the company. You were afforded the best spot imaginable. And I think a lot of people felt like, well, they got shortchanged. Now, the fact that you got 97,000 people to play on day one showed that there was a proportion of people who were willing to give it a go. They were willing to give it a try. But you lost 80% of those in 2 days. And a lot of that was due to feedback on technical issues, can't find a game, the fact that the 3v3 just didn't seem to work on these massive maps, the stuff with the grinding to get nodes and stuff like that. It was a very complex and not a very fluid gameplay loop. It was disconnected and clunky. So I think you would have fared far better without that spotlight, because you would have got a more organic audience, and that organic audience could have provided you with the feedback to build on the game, and then building on that game, and fingers crossed for you getting word of mouth positive feedback, would have brought more people into the game. But you went from that to that, instead of going from that to that. And that, to me, was the massive problem. We were turned into a joke from minute one, largely due to the false assumptions about $1 million ad placement, which even prominent journalists soon began to state as fact. Well, look, what I saw was that spot in that show costs companies around $500,000 to $1 million. As far as I'm aware, your company didn't pay anything. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you pay $1 million? Did you pay $500,000? Did you pay $10? It's irrelevant. The fact is, your trailer took that spot, regardless of how much money changed hands. You know, people can speculate to the blue in the face. It doesn't matter. Your trailer was there. It got that spot. Within minutes, it was decided this game was dead on arrival, and creators now had free rage bait content for a month. Well, if you're assuming it's dead on arrival from the launch of the trailer, from the announcement of the trailer, then that is people's reaction to the trailer. You can't put that on the backs of just content creators. Content creators are allowed to see something and go, that looks like shit. I myself have made my feelings perfectly clear on Highguard. To me, it looked complete and utterly bland. It looked bland and uninteresting. I didn't think the heroes looked good. I thought it was very generic. So, and I'm trying to be as nice as possible here. I'm your friend. But that weren't it. You know, you can be proud of your game, sir. You have every right under the sun. But trust me when I say that ain't it. Smite, which people in your company have worked on, I think is a far more fun-looking game, etc., than this Highguard. So sometimes maybe you are in the minority. You know, maybe people actually looked at it and went, this ain't looking nah good. And that's why. Just saying. Every one of our videos on social media got downvoted to hell. Comment sections were flooded with copy-paste meme phrases such as Concord 2 and Titanfall 3 died for this. Gotta be careful, dude, because I loved Titanfall 2. I loved it. And I'm absolutely mortified that we don't have any more Titanfall. So be careful. At launch, we received over 14,000 review bombs from reviewers with less than an hour of playtime. Many didn't even finish the required tutorial. Well, Josh, maybe they didn't have to. I hate to break it to you, but 14,000 people aren't going to waste their time to log on to your game just to leave a negative review. There might be 50, 100, maybe, tops, I don't know, but I think that's probably too high. Those were people that decided to give it a go, and they're under no obligation to stay 6 hours. They went on, they tried to do what they tried to do, for whatever reason it is. They didn't like it. They logged off, they went poop. And I'm sorry if that upsets you, but that's just the fact of the matter. 14,000 people are not wasting their time to download it, log on, just so that they could put a negative review. You got to understand that. In discussions online about Highguard, Concord, 2XKO and such, it is often pointed out by gamers that devs like to blame gamers for their failures. And that's silly. As if gamers have no power, but they do. A lot of it. Well, I agree with you. Gamers do have a lot of power. Do you know the power that a gamer has, Josh? They have the power to purchase your game or not purchase your game. That's the biggest power that they have. Do you know what power they don't have? What you did to the game, what the company did, how they made it, what they put into it, etc., etc. The gamer has the buying power. It is up to the company to make that gamer want to part with their hard-earned cash. I'm not saying our failure is purely the fault of gamer culture and that the game would have thrived without the negative discourse, but it absolutely played a role. All products are at the whims of the consumers, and the consumers put absurd amounts of effort into slandering Highguard, and it worked. Right, Josh, this is where I'm going to have to take out the ruler and start slapping you on your hand, okay? This is your very poor attempt to shirk responsibility. If you want to pinpoint the biggest failure that came to Highguard, it was your trailer reveal. If you want to look at blame, then you've got to look at Jeff Keighley and whoever was in contact with Jeff Keighley that made that happen, because they put absurd expectations onto a very mid game that wasn't the big reveal. Never designed to be the big reveal, but you took it. Your company has to take the bulk of that responsibility, because if this wasn't presented as the next huge thing in that position, then expectations from people would have been much more muted. If this was a standard reveal at the beginning of the show, or if it was just a little piece that went onto social media at another point in time. But no, it is not the fault of gamers in any capacity to look at a game and go, I don't want out to do with that. And it's not the fault of gamers to vocalize that. And as regards to companies blaming gamers, do you know why gamers say companies blame gamers? Because they fucking blame gamers, just like you did there. That's why. Josh, dear goodness, you don't even read what you've put. You don't even understand what you've put. You've done exactly the same boring trope. Gamers didn't like it. It's gamers' fault. They slandered the game. Nobody slandered the game. They gave their opinion on the game. And you might not have liked that. You definitely didn't by the looks of it. But to blame gamers for the failure of Highguard is quite honestly pathetic. You want to absolve yourself of responsibility, and that's not going to happen. Your game wasn't up to it, quite clearly. It wasn't up to the expectations that your CEO and Jeff Keighley put upon it to place it where it got placed and to present it as it got presented. And that caused backlash. Another word, consequences. Many of Wildlight's former devs will now be forced to assimilate back into the actual corporate industry many gamers accused Wildlight of being a part of. Well, so what? I don't care. Gamers shouldn't care. We have our own troubles and struggles and strife in life. We're not here to prop up an indie team because they want them to get themselves a fucking house. It's not what our lives are built around. I'm sorry to break it to you, mate. Now every time someone thinks about leaving the golden handcuffs behind, oh, poor you, in favor of making a new multiplayer game the indie way, they'll say, but remember how the gamers didn't even give Wildlight a chance? No, not really, no. Because maybe they'll actually have an idea. And just to carry on, soon, if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations. At least in the multiplayer space, innovation is on life support. No, it's not. Every Sunday, 6 p.m. UK time on this channel, I have a thing called Sunday Fun Day, which is myself, Quarter Black Garrett, X-Ray Girl, Cara Lynn, Mr. Porkchop 14. And what we do is we tend to play, for the most part, indie multiplayer games. Not hero shooters. That was a saturated marketplace that you decided to enter when it's been dominated by Marvel Rivals and Overwatch, and your game wasn't up to muster by any stretch of the imagination. So I know you think it's all that and you're trying to canonize yourself, but believe you me, for the millionth time in this video, your game wasn't it. And we play multiplayer games that have very fun gameplay loops, have been made for very little resources, and they turn over pretty damn good profits because they have that fun ability, that fun element which gets people to come together for a good while and have a great laugh. You chose to go into a busy, very competitive, oversaturated marketplace and don't start playing oh boo-hoo poor little indie us. You made your bed, now you lie in it. Even if Highguard had a rocky launch, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people just trying to make a fun game with zero AI and zero corporate oversight deserved better than this. We deserved the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. I don't know how many times I can knock on the door here and make it perfectly clear. You made the game. You made the game. Now, all the other, it might be upsetting. Of course, it's upsetting when something we love gets ridiculed. But you made the game, and the game didn't find an audience. Nearly 100,000 people turned up on the 26th of January to give it a go. I saw multiple big streamers streaming Highguard. They all dropped off. 80% dropped off in 2 days of the player base. Within a few more days, you were below 90%. That is a damning indictment on the game itself. And let me just go right back up to the top here. This has been called reflecting on shipping my first game, brackets Highguard. And all this has seemingly been is you wanting to place the blame on everyone else but your own company, on everyone else but your CEO, on everyone else but Jeff Keighley, on everyone else but thinking of the ramifications of what that Game Award spot would have based on what you were offering. But somehow it's the gamer's fault. This is weak, Josh. Very weak indeed. Be upset that something you've spent 2.5 years on has failed. You have every right to do so. Be proud of your game. You have every right to do so. But if you want to lash out, do fucking better, then it's the gamer's fault. Because you clearly didn't provide a product that gamers wanted to stick around in. Nobody is holding any guns to anybody's head saying don't play Highguard. And maybe, just maybe, it got a lot of criticism and it got a lot of ribbing and it got a lot of poking fun at because it just wasn't that good. And that might go against what you think, but it clearly doesn't go against what the marketplace said. This is the final paragraph because the rest just simply goes into shout outs for some other people. I wish the best of luck to the few who remain at Wildlight and hope Highguard can stay the course. It's honestly not looking likely, let's all be honest. I still believe in it, and so do the fans we reached who continue to champion it on the subreddit, Discord, Twitch, and social media. And even though this adventure has come to an abrupt and emotionally challenging close, I don't regret 1 second of it. Well, I have been as objective as I possibly can throughout this whole post. I'll continue to do so, but I don't think Josh is going to like what I have to say next. Going through this post, I have to say that you come across as exceedingly entitled. You seem to think that gamers owe you because you made a game. You seem to think that you're owed your house, and you're not. I feel as if all your lashing out is going into the wrong area. You're very quick to blame gamers and games media for mocking Highguard, but you don't seem to in any capacity want to take any responsibility as part of the company itself. In actual fact, it kind of feels like you were sold a bill of goods. You were told that Highguard's going to do this and it's going to do that and it's going to open these doors and it's going to make you this by your CEO or whoever to motivate you. But for the final time in this video, that game, that trailer that you showed off, that game that you released, it wasn't it. And it was never going to be it. So you were always barking up the wrong avenue here. You decided to go straight into the fast lane, and you're on a bicycle. And you're just getting smashed all over the place by all the fast-moving cars. You couldn't handle it. That's not gamers' fault. That's not games media fault. They're reacting to what happened. Maybe one day Josh will place the responsibility where he should, which is at the feet of the decision makers at Wildlight Studio. But until then, this is just another game developer blaming the gamers themselves because they refuse to take responsibility. And it's a story as old as time and as boring as well. I'll see you in the next video. You take care. Goodbye, Baloo Boo.